I just wanted to take a minute to introduce the topic for today's debate. Today's debate is primarily focused on gold and its significance within the within the Indian community, and even more specifically, it is focused on our passion and our obsession with gold, and whether that is detrimental to our economy and our financial well-being, or is it really a positive addition to our portfolio. In general, the Indian investor tends to believe that gold is a solid investment, and he does not recognize that it basically blocks the flow of cash within the country. So it gold comes with its strengths and its weaknesses, and it has a big impact on the Indian psyche as well as the economy. So today's debate is focused on whether it's a good investment or whether it hampers the Indian economy the way it gets stored and used by the Indian households. All the best to the two teams. One team is going to talk for the topic and the other is going to talk against the topic. The team talking for the topic is the sales team at Dozen Diamonds, and the team talking against the topic is the instructor team within Dozen Diamonds.
A very good evening, everyone. Diving straight into the topic. The first question is that to what extent does India's gold consumption impact its current account deficit and overall economic stability? Very quickly, I'm just going to tell you that what is current account deficit. Screen pay, you can see there's a formula given over here. In short words, if the numbers after plugging in each and every value, if the number comes positive, it is known as current account surplus. And if the number comes negative, it is known as current account deficit. Now here, India's GDP is $4.19 trillion and India's gold import is $50 to $60 billion per year. So for ease of calculation, I have taken average of 50 and 60, which comes to $55 billion. So if I have to calculate the gold import percentage of GDP, that comes around 1.3%. See, this clearly shows that India's relationship with, sorry, yeah. So this clearly shows that India's relationship with gold is not an economic burden, but it is an economic buffer, and the data clearly shows it. In the next slide, I'm going to show you all the measures or the scale, which simply tells that until what extent does the current account deficit means that the countries are in safe hands or in a crisis zone. As you can see it over here. Wait a second. Yeah. As you can see it over here, India is being labeled as orange. Here is the orange part, and it is clearly above our safe zone. So this simply means that our current account deficit is currently placed at a very safe zone. Now moving on, going to show you a very interesting thing. As you can see it over here in this data, it is being shown that our current account deficit percentage of GDP was at minus 0.8% in the entire 2024. And abhi tak, in 2025, our current account deficit is only to 0.2%. Now, a simple question may arise ki till now we have only seen only 2 quarters of the 2025. So let me give you a very simple example. If this is the data which I have collected, this can easily make you understand that what I'm going to explain you about. You can easily see in first quarter of 2024 and second quarter of 2024, the gold imports were quite similar. But in the next quarter, 2020, third quarter of 2023 and fourth quarter of 2024, the gold imports were quite higher. Now, the only reason why I'm comparing the Q1 and Q2 of 2025 to Q1 of 2024 and Q2 2024, because till now we have only seen these 2 quarters and the next 2 quarters are yet to be seen. Even if you guys complain that this is not a fair comparison, even during the first 2 quarters of 2024, you can easily see that the current account deficit was same as the entire year, which was 0.8%. So this simply shows that there is absolutely no relation with the current account deficit as per the gold import. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to easily convince you guys that you can easily see that the total gold import during the financial year 24-25 was 58 billion, and the total Yeah, and the total imports were 689 billion. If I have to take a round number, I will calculate it by 698 billion. So this simply shows that percentage of gold imports of total imports is only 8%. Gold forms just 8 to 7% of India's imports, while oil and other electronic goods combined gives me around 50 to 60%. Yet gold gets blamed for not getting for not the yet gold gets blamed, but not the bigger import categories get blamed. See, even if we take the highest gold import year, let's say if we take 1.5 years, 1.5% of GDP, the category is so small that it simply cannot destabilize a 4 trillion economy. If you try to understand that, if anything, the reason behind our current account deficit remains stable at 0.6% of GDP is because the gold demand is easily being absorbed by India's massive surplus. And in this example, in this data which I have shown and the calculation which I have shown, you can easily see that gold is only 8% of the total imports. And despite being so much imported during the last 2 quarters of 2024, yet our current account deficit has been really been good in the next first quarter of 25 and second quarter of 2025. So this simply shows and proves my point that gold is not an economic burden, but it
30
is an
seconds more.
economic buffer to our Indian economy.
To what extent does the Indian gold consumption impact its current account deficit and overall economic stability? So, gold is deeply rooted in our culture, and from weddings to the festival, it seems as a symbol of prosperity. But the most people doesn't realize that the emotional and the cultural fixation on the gold comes with a heavy economic cost. This section will understand like how the obsession of the gold directly impact the current account deficit. So this chart clearly shows as the connections between the gold import and the Indian current account deficit, which measures how much more we spend on the imports than we earn from the export. If you look at here in the year 2011 to 2013, the gold import raised sharply and the current account deficit hit nearly negative 5% of the GDP. The same pattern is being repeated in the year 2020 and 2023. This proves that whenever the Indian imports more gold from the foreign exchange outflow uh, increases, which weakens our currency and increases the financial pressure. Every gram of the import gold added a weight on the Indians' economic burden. So, just to give you like summarize relationship between this, the two major sparks in the gold import in the year 2011 to 2013 and 2020 to 2023 both aligns that the India's worst GDP figures. The gold is the second only to the crude oil in Indian's biggest import. But here the key difference is oil fuels the production in the industry, but the gold fuels the consumption. Gold doesn't generate any export income and create jobs. It simply drains the dollars out of the country. So this is the report from the World Gold Council report of 2023 and 2024. According to the World Gold Council, the Indian gold demand is in the year 2023 was about 562 tons, and it increased 803 tons in the year 2024. And if you see here, out of the around 70% of the gold was used for the jewelry, not investment or production. This shows that the most of the gold in the India is for consumption, not for generating income or the growth. So we are not investing in gold, we are decorating our debt. If you see that the blue section is only being invested, rest the orange section is being used to make jewelries, which is about 70% of the Indian total gold demand, so which is being used for the gifting and other purposes.
30 seconds
since
left.
we import, since we import nearly all this gold, it reduces the larger foreign exchange outflow, widen the trade deficit, and in short, the gold fixation on the gold keeps wealth locked away and unproductive, uninvestment, and untaxed while the economy pays the price. Gold may be timeless, but our economic growth cannot afford the wait forever.
What you said about exporting versus importing gold, I totally agree with that. I completely agree that we are importing a lot of gold as compared to the export. But the data you showed, which was during 2011 and 2023 of the current account deficit, which was widened, blaming gold alone oversimplifies the entire issue. See, the real reason during that time was the global crude shock and the policy paralysis during that entire period, not just gold imports. Secondly, oil was the bigger culprit, not the gold. My point here is not to blame the oil, but my point here is just to defend the gold. While oil imports made up nearly 65% of India's total imports during that time, gold was only around 10%. A global oil price surge pushed the current account deficit up far more than gold did. So gold imports reflect economic insecurity, not economic weakness. While Indians were turning to gold because of high inflation and falling rupee, which made gold a safe hedge, not a cause of crisis. See, in other words, gold was the symptom and not the disease. It is not simply because of such time, but also the government's slow reforms and high fiscal deficit also during that time comes into play, where the period was so worsened that the investment sentiment was bad, and so was the current account deficit, as you showed. When the macro fundamentals, which were improved after 2024, the gold demand stayed strong. But what was more surprising is that the current account deficit came under control. This clearly proves that the gold wasn't the real villain. See, my last line would be that blaming gold for 2011 and 2023 current account deficit for the minus 5% GDP uh, reason is like blaming a thermometer for a fever. It only reflects deeper economic issue, it does not cause them.
I would be reverting to your point, like as you said that as per your information that the oil was one of the major factors which created that figure, like, and was the major issues when the GDP goes minus 5% like, and as you also accepted that the gold was also a part of it. So if you know that our debate is basically about gold, we are not talking about any other elements, we are not talking about any other factors of the economy. We are just talking about the correlations between and the connections between the gold and the current account deficit. So as our figures which proved uh, properly, not diverting the audience, not distracting it with the other elements, we are not talking about the JDP over here, we are specifically talking about the gold and the current account deficit, how it impacts and how it further impacts the GDP. So my point is, as you accepted in your presentation that gold was also part of it, so we presented that how much it impacted and what was the part of the same in that duration.
You started by talking about what is the primary objective of dozen diamonds, right? The primary objective of dozen diamonds is to benefit the country. कंट्री कम्स फर्स्ट. प्रॉफिट प्रॉफिट होता रहेगा, लोगों को प्रॉफिट होता रहेगा, पैसे बनते रहेंगे.
सर प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मतलब द फ्रॉम वेयर यू आर कमिंग फ्रॉम, यू आर फुलफिल्ड इन लाइफ. तो अब आप ये ऐसा सोच रहे हो वहां पे, लेकिन जो लोग अभी हैं जो अपनी लाइफ में रेस कर रहे हैं, वी कांट टेल देम कि यार कंट्री के लिए सोचो या सोचो. वो आई एम श्योर अभी अगर अपने अपने टीम से पूछ लें, द पीपल इन द टीम, तो आई एम श्योर कि 90% की, इवन नॉट इवन 1 लाख की भी इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं होगी स्टॉक मार्केट में, बट उनका कहीं ना कहीं उन्होंने गोल्ड बाय किया होगा अभी तक.
पहली बात कमल,
यस सर.
मैं अपनी टीम में सबसे गरीब आदमी होऊंगा, तुमको पता नहीं है, राइट? मेरा सारा पैसा डजन डायमंड्स में लग चुका है. अभी ये कंपनी सिर्फ मेरे दोस्तों की कृपा से चल रही है, राइट?
मैं जनरल बात कर रहा हूँ सर, मतलब इसको हटा देते हैं, चलो अपने किसी और,
राइट.
अगर नॉर्मल बात कर लेते हैं, 30-35
राइट.
ईयर ओल्ड ओल्ड इंडियंस की बात कर लेते हैं जो कॉर्पोरेट में जॉब कर रहे हैं.
नहीं
तो
तो वही
उनको
मेरा
लगता
कहने
है.
का मतलब वही है ना कि अगर वही पैसा वो स्टॉक मार्केट में लगाएंगे, उनका पैसा भी बनेगा और देश का भी भला होगा. जॉब्स क्रिएट होंगे तो जो मेरे एम्प्लॉयज हैं उनकी भी सैलरी बढ़ेगी. उनकी सैलरी बढ़ेगी, उनका लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड बढ़ेगा, क्योंकि नए नए प्रोडक्ट्स मार्केट में आएंगे, राइट? अभी सीधी सी बात है ना, बेस्ट इकोनॉमी कौन सी है अपनी सामने? यूएस की इकोनॉमी है. उनका टोटल इन्वेस्टमेंट इन गोल्ड इज 0.5% ऑफ देयर टोटल वेल्थ. हमारा कितना है? 20%. उसका कुछ तो इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा ना, 20% वर्सेज 0.5%,
सर एक
राइट?
इंडिविजुअल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सोच रहा हूँ मैं भी, एक इंडिविजुअल को बेनिफिट किस में ज्यादा है, मतलब हो उसके पास जो चॉइस है वो ऑब्वियसली वो कर सकता है, कुछ उसमें इन्वेस्ट कर सकता है स्टॉक मार्केट में,
नहीं
कुछ
ये ओके.
ऐड कर
मैं
सकता है
मेरा
अपने.
पॉइंट ये है कि इट्स ए सेल्फ फुलफिलिंग प्रोफेसी.
हम्म,
अगर तुम गोल्ड खरीदोगे, ऑफ कोर्स
हाँ,
गोल्ड का दाम बढ़ेगा, राइट?
हम्म,
अगर तुम उस पैसे को मार्केट में लगाओगे तो मार्केट बढ़ेगी, राइट? दीज थिंग, अगर हमारा 20% हमारा वेल्थ गोल्ड में अटका हुआ है, तो उसका इम्पैक्ट तो पड़ेगा ना, गोल्ड पे भी पड़ेगा, अपनी इकोनॉमी पे भी पड़ेगा। अगर वही पैसा अगर मार्केट में इन्वेस्टेड होता, 20% का आधा भी, 10% भी मार्केट में इन्वेस्टेड होता, तो आज हमारे मार्केट की वैल्यू $8 ट्रिलियन होती। $2.5 ट्रिलियन से अगर मार्केट का वैल्यू इंक्रीज हुआ, तो उसका देश पे तो इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा ना। देश पे इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा। हम इतना रोते रहते हैं कि अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है, ये इशू है, वो इशू है, गरीबी है। ये सब इसीलिए है क्योंकि हम जॉब्स क्रिएट नहीं कर पाते, और क्रिएट नहीं कर पाते क्योंकि हमारा पैसा अटका हुआ है। ये तुम्हारा परसेप्शन है कि मेरे को गोल्ड में जा डाल के ज़्यादा सेफ्टी मिलेगा, या ये मिलेगा या वो मिलेगा। वही पैसा अगर मार्केट में लगा रहता, कोई बर्डन नहीं है उसमें, उसका ज़्यादा पैसा बनता, उसका लिविंग स्टैंडर्ड बढ़ता।
हाउ डज गोल्ड इम्पोर्ट इन्फ्लुएंस इन्फ्लेशन एंड फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व इन इंडिया? तो अगर आप ध्यान से देखोगे तो जो हमारा इन्फ्लेशन इंडेक्स है, सीपीआई, कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स, उसमें गोल्ड का वेटेज लेस देन 1% है, मतलब एकदम निग्लिजिबल है। तो डायरेक्टली ऐसा कुछ इम्पैक्ट नहीं होता है गोल्ड का, इम्पैक्ट कम या ज्यादा होने से, ठीक है। दूसरी चीज, जो गोल्ड की प्राइस की मूवमेंट है उसका भी जो इन्फ्लेशन है, कोर इन्फ्लेशन, उस पर ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट नहीं होता है। वो इसलिए नहीं होता है क्योंकि जो गोल्ड है वो नॉन कंज्यूमेबल एसेट है, ठीक है, जिसको एक बार मैंने गोल्ड खरीद लिया तो मैं इसको डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं कर सकता, ठीक है, वो इकोनॉमी में फ्लोट होता रहेगा, ठीक है। उसके बाद जैसे अगर मैं बात करूं 22-24 के इन्फ्लेशन स्पाइक की, जहाँ पे गोल्ड का इंपोर्ट बढ़ा है, ठीक है, लेकिन जो सीपीआई है वो कांस्टेंट रहा है, तो ये सीधा सा बताता है कि जो गोल्ड का इंपोर्ट है वो डायरेक्टली सीपीआई इन्फ्लेशन के साथ किसी भी तरह का कोई लिंक शेयर नहीं होता है, मतलब होता है बट बहुत माइन्यूटली होता है। जैसे मैं ये ग्राफ से अगर बताना चाहूंगा, सो दिस ग्राफ शोज कि आरबीआई की जो आरबीआई के ट्रेजरी में कितना गोल्ड उसने भरा है। तो नियरली 2022 से लेके 24 के बीच में 120 टन से भी ज्यादा गोल्ड आरबीआई ने अपनी तिजोरी में भरा है। अगर गोल्ड ये इन्फ्लेशन अगर स्पाइक करता या फिर फॉरेक्स रिजर्व को अगर हार्म करता, तो क्यों आरबीआई खुद गोल्ड भरती अपनी तिजोरी में? सबसे पहली चीज, ठीक है। अगर आप डेटा को देखोगे तो 19 से लेके 23 तक इस तरीके से यहाँ पे आपको गोल्ड होल्डिंग्स दिखाई गई है और उसकी वैल्यूएशन उस ईयर के अकॉर्डिंग। इस ग्राफ शोज जैसे सबसे पहले गोल्ड जो है वो एक शील्ड की तरह काम करता है इन्फ्लेशन के और करेंसी रिस्क के। ये मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, ये खुद आरबीआई कह रहा है। जो उसकी रिपोर्ट आई थी 24-25 की, उसमें उसने खुद कहा है कि गोल्ड रिजर्व एक्ट एज ए शील्ड अगेंस्ट इन्फ्लेशन एंड करेंसी रिस्क, ठीक है। अब ये ग्राफ में अगर आप देखोगे तो ये ग्राफ में आपको दिख रहा है कि जो ब्लू लाइन है वो गोल्ड का इंपोर्ट इंडिकेट कर रही है एंड द रेड लाइन इंडिकेट द सीपीआई इन्फ्लेशन। तो जैसे अगर आप देखोगे तो कोविड-19 के ईयर में, मतलब 1920 में, जो गोल्ड का इंपुट है वो बढ़ा सब्सटेंशियली, जो सीपीआई इन्फ्लेशन है वो बढ़ा। बट इसके बाद अगर आप देखोगे तो यहाँ पे आप देखोगे गोल्ड का इन्फ्लेशन सडनली बढ़ते जा रहा है, बट जो सीपीआई इन्फ्लेशन है वो कम हुआ है, ठीक है। तो इसका सीधा सा मतलब है कि डायरेक्ट कुछ मतलब जो डायरेक्ट कोरिलेशन है कि गोल्ड इंपोर्ट बढ़ने से इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ता है, इस बात को मैं नहीं मानता हूँ। उसके बाद आप देखोगे ग्राफ पे, जैसे 22-23 में जो गोल्ड इंपोर्ट है वो कम हुआ है, लेकिन जो इन्फ्लेशन है वो 5.3 से 5.4 हुआ है अगेंस्ट जो 23-24 से लेके, मतलब 23-24 में जो हमारा गोल्ड इंपोर्ट था वो 45.5 बिलियंस का था, लेकिन अगर आप इन्फ्लेशन देखोगे तो वहाँ पे 5.1% का है, मतलब डिक्लाइन आया है।
Impact of the gold on inflation and the foreign exchange reserves in India. So let us start with a simple question, that what really happens when India imports too much of gold? Every time we buy gold from abroad, we are paying in US dollars. This means our dollar flow out of the country. As dollar leaves, rupees weakens, and a weaker rupee means everything we import like oil, gas, electronics became more expensive. This directly push up inflation and force the Reserve Bank to use foreign exchange reserves to stabilize the rupee. So gold import doesn't just impact jewelry shops; they impact every single household in India. When the gold import rises, the price rise, and our national saving falls. So in the as we see that the India is the second largest importer of the gold in the world. Most of the gold is used for the to produce here is brought from the other countries. So India gold imposed over time. This graph, which has been clearly showing that how much we import. So look at the chart. It shows that India gold imports from 2011 to 2024. Notice how number stay high. often crossing 50 billion. This proves that our deep dependency on imported golds. Uh, if we our obsessions with the gold is not just emotional, it is economical lack. This is the chart which is from the research of which shows that the gold import versus the current account deficit. Again, it shows clearly that the double line chart shows the link between the gold imports and the current account deficit, the difference between what we earn and from exports and what we spend. The same example which I gave in the previous slide about the year 2011 and the year 2020, 22 and 2023. uh, we have been crossing 53 billions of US dollars just by purchasing gold. This flowchart clearly explains us that when the gold import increase, more US dollars flows out, the rupees loses the value, and the imported goods became more costlier when we expense more. So this ultimately increases the inflation. Okay, so it is a domino effect. One action triggers another. So if you see in the November 2024, India trade deficit hit a record of 337.8 billion USD, largely because of the gold imports. The rupees fell and the inflation expectation went up immediately. This pie chart is basically the RBI reserve compensation. So now we look at the pie chart showing that the Indian foreign exchange reserve as of October 2025. So if you see over here, the 85% of our resources are held in the foreign currency, and only 15% is the gold. The foreign exchange currency serves our national safety net. This helps us to pay imports, handle gold stocks, and maintain rupee stability. But when the gold import rises, the RBI often sell dollars for these reserves and support the rupees, and this means our safety net gets thinner. Higher gold imports makes the India more vulnerable during the global crisis and weaken our financial security. Gold makes our wallet glitters, but our reserve shinier. It's not affecting like an individual, it's affecting an all. If you imagine, like if we earn 1 lakh and we spend 1.2 lakhs, so you would start using that your saving, right? So that exactly what happens when India imports too much of gold from the from the foreign currency, savings go down. And when the rupee is weakened, everything we buy from abroad like oil, fuel, food, phones becomes expensive. That expensive is basically inflation. In short, the gold import makes our economy weaker and our daily life costlier. The gold make one person richer, it feels, but makes the entire nation poor in reality.
The current account deficit is being impacted. It was clearly about how it influences the inflation and also the foreign exchange reserve. Coming back to the things which you said that gold doesn't, yeah, that gold fails at national savings falls because of gold, and India is the second largest importer of gold. And the obsession with gold is not emotional but economical lack. See, gold doesn't destroy savings, it stores them. Firstly, household savings in gold are a part of total wealth, not a loss to the nation. Second point is that it's only counted as unproductive in the air quotes, but because it's not captured in formal systems, but it's still saving. It is not at all spending. In fact, the rural India uses gold as collateral for loans, which directly supports small businesses and agricultural credit. Right. So calling gold a drain on savings is like calling a fixed deposit a waste just because you cannot spend it instantly. Next point is that the gold, jewelry, refinery, and export industries employ millions of people, especially women in rural areas and artisans in small to medium enterprises.
So as you said that in our report, like I presented my point in such a way that when we are importing more gold, ultimately the foreign exchange are being used, and when the foreign exchange are being used, the rupees values is being decreasing, and when the rupees value is getting decreased, so ultimately what we are left over with the foreign reserve and we need to do other international trades. So I gave the example like if we buy oil which comes up at a higher value, that ultimately increases the inflation in the country. If we purchase at a higher cost, obviously the country would not be selling it as a loss, right? They're gonna sell it more higher towards the consumers of the country. So that was our point. If you say that they are just saving as a reserves to their houses, I also agree to that point. It might be a very good investment for them, but not for the country. They are doing it for themselves, but at the larger picture, if you say the more they do it, the more we need to import it.
So, Josefa, whatever you said, I agree with that. Okay, that once you import gold, you have to pay in dollars, and then the rupee value drops. Okay, but I do not see any data, like any official data, which shows, like for example, in the instructor team, like Abhinav's team, okay, who was editing, they showed a graph. Okay, there is no much impact on the CPI inflation. There's no much impact on the inflation when we import gold. Okay, it was directly shown. A graph was shown. So what was the CPI index and what was the gold import? But you did not show any official data saying that when we imported gold, the rupee depreciated so much at that point in time. So do you all have any data as such?
As such, we don't have the specific data like how much difference is there at present, but I'm sure if we do a more research, if we might have done it, we might have come up with positive numbers. But the data which I showed in the RBI composition, if you might have observed that the gold holdings we have, it's only 14.6% in the our reserves. Okay, so if they said that gold is playing a crucial role, it's only 1%, and it's been impacting a lot in the foreign exchange or the foreign trade, but that's not the reality. We are spending our foreign exchange, which is 85.4%. It's not the gold who is major impacting, it's the foreign exchange, the USD, which is being sent while doing the international trades with the other countries. While importing things, we are outflowing our US dollars, which is weakening and thinning our economic. In near future, if for the God's sake it should not happen, but economic crisis comes up, we will be not able to handle it.
The government clearly knows that the how much gold affects and how much gold importance has on our culture. That is the only reason why they are importing.
The
what other
government
reason
is
does
the
they
one
have?
who is coming out with new policies every time to get people to move people away from gold. They came up with sovereign gold bonds. They came up with all kinds of policies. They are continuously trying to figure out. The government realizes that the reason Indians are fixated with gold is the reason why our economy is not progressing. The government is the first one to realize that.
So if the government has realized that, why it has been importing gold for so many years?
Government has been importing. The government is not importing the kind of consumption that gold has in India. 24,000 tons of gold is held by Indian women, right?
28, yeah, yeah.
The amount of gold that the government consumes or uses is very small. It is primarily using it for transaction purposes, right? Compared to that, we are fixed. The debate is hardly about importing. The
Yeah,
reality is the
exactly.
debate is hardly about importing. It is primarily focused more on the amount of gold we own and how much we are we are draining our the cash flow in the country by storing it in the form of gold.
The third question is, what role does gold play in Indian household savings, and how does it impact financial inclusion and access to credit? See,
बढ़िया
for
एकदम परफेक्ट टॉपिक है चलो
पॉइंट आ गया।
for Indian households, gold is a foundational component of wealth, often prioritized over formal financial assets. This preference is driven by a combination of various things, let's say economic factors, cultural, all social factors. In the data which I'm going to show you completely shows that how much gold does Indian households have. That is approximately 28,000 tons of gold. This figure is obviously 3 times more held by the US government. This article completely proves that. And on the right side, you can see that how much gold the top countries are clearly holding. This 28,000 tons of gold is collected on the individual level. I completely agree. On the right side, it is collected uh, on the country level, that is 846 tons. Now, if I take you to the second part of the question, which is how it is impacting the financial inclusion, the first part is that it is an alternative financial tool. Right. So for low or medium income households, rural population and individuals in the informal sector, gold often serves as their primary financial asset. The ability to use this asset to access services makes it a powerful alternative for the financial inclusion. Next is the gateway to formal credit for women. See, gold is particularly important for the financial inclusion of women. In many households, gold jewelry is also known as Dhan, is one of the few assets women have direct control over. The gold loan market has recognized this, as I mentioned in my point earlier. And for many women, especially in semi-urban and rural areas, a gold loan is their very first interaction with a formal financial institution. Next is bridging the unbanked into the system. Bringing gold loans are asset backed. They do not rely on credit histories. They do not rely on credit histories, income proof, or any kind of formal employment. We all know how untransparent the entire civil score system works in India. So for those individuals who do not have certain credit history which is required to take any loan, gold is the best way to take the loan. And somewhere it also creates a credit footprint with a formal lender, which opens the door to another other financial products in the future.
So the question is the role of gold in Indian household saving and impact on financial inclusion and credit access. So ladies and gentlemen, in India, gold is not just a metal, it is emotion, security and tradition melted together. For centuries, from the glittering ornament of queens to the simple bangles of farmer wives, gold has been the heartbeat of Indian saving. When bank did not exist, when inflation was just a rumor, and one trust day not in proper money but in tangible shine. Indians trusted gold. Even today, in every wedding, every festival, every family emergency, gold silently guards our household like an old faithful friend. Gold may shine in our hand, but it weakens our economy. Our obsession with gold increases inflation, drains our foreign reserves, and puts pressure on the rupee. To protect the India economic stability, we must invest our saving in productive assets, not imported gold. India today told over 25,000 tons of gold worth nearly 150 lakh crore, the largest private gold holding in the world, as per the World Gold Council Report 2023. Every Indian household owner or urban, rich or poor, treat gold as the safest form of saving, which is easy to store, inflation proof, and emotionally satisfying. But this golden love story has two sides. One side is that on one hand, it reflects our financial wisdom, our ability to save and protect ourselves when bank fail or inflation rises for millions in villages who don't have easy access to banker or credit card. Gold is their personal bank, their insurance policy, and their emergency fund. In fact, during crisis with in COVID, there is 1.5 to 2 lakh crore in gold loan annually. There, there is, but the other side is darker side, which is our obsession with physical gold also looks up enormous wealth in vaults and cupboards, unproductive wealth that does not circulate in the economy. Instead of investing in bank, mutual fund or startup, Indians store their saving as gold, which contribute nothing in national growth. When households invest less in financial instruments, financial inclusion slows down. When India imports hundreds of tons of gold every year, our current account deficit widens, our rupee weakens, and economic stability is tested. So while gold gives emotional comfort, it also keeps people away from the digital financial revolution like saving account, UPI payment, credit card, insurance, and pensioner, which can say that gold makes people financially safe but not financially included. This is the graph of current account deficit versus the gold import. So you can see that the red is the current account deficit and the yellow graph is the gold import, which is in US dollar. So the current account deficit is increased day by day, which is in negative, and your import of gold increases. So my other consequence is that how gold hampers financial inclusion. Financial inclusion means giving people access to bank account, credit, insurance, and digital payment. But when people save in gold, they often don't open bank account, don't invest in financial asset, and don't build a credit history. That means millions remain financially invisible. They cannot access loans without pledging gold. They can't benefit from government financial scheme, and they remain trapped in a cycle of informal, unrecorded saving.
15
Limited
seconds
credit.
left. Yeah.
So My final conclusion is that, friends, I'm not saying gold has a value, has no value. It surely does. But we must understand this truth. Gold makes people feel rich, not only empowered.
So many points covered by you, Javed. Some really good points where you talked about how gold puts pressure on the Indian rupee, how people put gold in their vault, and gold contribute nothing to the national growth. Excellent. Now, my rebuttal is that rupee, the thing which you talked about, rupee pressure is just a short-term effect. It is not a structural problem. If it was a huge problem that every time, then every time if you had a wedding in India, the rupee might crash significantly, but it doesn't happen, right? So next thing is that gold imports. You also talked about gold imports and the CAD. I'm coming to that aspect in the next 20 seconds. But talking about the rupee, that the rupee weakens when the global oil prices or the US dollar strength rises. These are far more bigger factors than just the gold. Gold import obviously can influence the rupee temporarily, as I mentioned earlier also, but it is not a permanent drag on the currency. When the CAD, which is the current account deficit, widened in 2023, as I said, RBI used the gold monetization schemes and gold bonds to balance it, and it worked. After that, the CAD fell, though gold demand remained higher. So my main point is that if gold was the reason for rupee weakness, then the rupee should have kept on falling every time. Any In India, we have this Akshay Tritiya. So every time Akshay Tritiya comes, the rupee should fall. As I gave the example of wedding also, but this time it didn't. Now coming back to CAD, which you said that how every time gold imports have emptied the current account deficit. See, current account deficit depends on overall trade balance. It is not just dependent on one commodity. The CAD doesn't widen because of gold alone. It's a result of, as you also mentioned, it is a result of total import minus the export gap. So in most of the years, again, touching the point that oil and electronic imports are far more major contributor than the CAD, the major contributors to the CAD than gold. If I have to give you an example, in 2023 to 22-23, India imported 158 billion worth of crude oil versus 35 billion in gold. That is almost 4 times. Yet all prices fall and export rise, CAD shrinks. But even when the gold demand remains steady, it is proof that the gold isn't the key driver. So the current account deficit is like a balance sheet.
So as you say that as per the like NBFC, Muthoot Finance you mentioned, and also for financial inclusion. So my question is that you say gold promote financial inclusion, but how can asset locked in home lockers outside the banking system promote inclusion? Is it true financial inclusion about bringing people into the formal system, not encouraging them to stay outside? So on access to credit, you claim gold loan improves access to credit, but are not gold loan just a short-term emergency loan that don't build any credit history or financial literacy? So my question is that how the how how is it home lockers outside the banking system promote inclusion?
I never said that the home lockers are offsetting the.
But you say
Uh,
na ki like uh, short-term emergency loan that don't build any credit history. Means like you say na ki NBFC और Muthoot Finance ने इतना जमा किया है, इतना
नहीं
लोन नहीं
नहीं
किया है.
what I said is that they have constructed a billion dollar industry just on the basis of the gold loan, because they know how frequent and how big people take loan against gold.
Let me tell you one thing upfront. Nobody gives you a loan out of goodwill. Okay? The whole purpose of giving you a loan is to basically confiscate your assets.
Correct,
Collateral.
sir.
Yeah,
My point.
yeah,
Right? I mean,
yeah.
nobody is giving you a loan because they love you. They are giving you the loan because they love the assets that you are putting on at stake. Whether it's your house, whether any collateral, that whether the bank is giving you the loan, whether a gold shop is giving you the loan, they are mainly trying to confiscate your assets for cheap. That's all they're doing. So just keep that in mind. Loans are
Yeah,
not
yeah,
something
exactly.
great to access. So
Yeah, exactly. My point was that how easy it is to access loan against gold rather than other conventional ways to get loan. That was my
right.
point.
See, the other point I want to make is we are talking about, creating a billion dollar industry out of loans, right? People have created bigger businesses out of alcohol and cigarettes. What about that? Right? What my point is, just because you built a big industry out of a bad habit doesn't make the habit right.
टॉप टेन
टॉप टेन
एम्प्लॉय
एम्प्लॉइंग कंपनीज कितने कितने एम्प्लॉयज रखे हुए हैं, किस किस कंपनी ने कितने कितने एम्प्लॉयज रखे हुए हैं, राइट? जॉब कहाँ मिल रहा है वो दूसरी बात है। अभी आप टीयर 3 की बात कर रहे हैं, आप वैसा क्यों देख रहे हैं? आप टोटल नंबर ऑफ जॉब्स कहाँ क्रिएट हो रहे हैं ये देखिए ना।
या दैट इज ऑल्सो अ पॉइंट। चलो हम अपने मान सकते हैं क्योंकि वो काफी सारी सर्विसेज हैं जो अपने सर्व कर रहे हैं, जैसे इन्फोसिस हो गया और यू नो
राइट।
हो गया
मेजरली
ये
आईटी कंपनी।
आईटी कंपनीज हैं। लेकिन अगर देखा जाए तो डाइवर्सिटी भी तो होनी चाहिए ना जॉब्स की। अगर मान लो कुछ इकोनॉमी बन रही है, एक
वही
साइड
मैं
पे से
देखो, पॉइंट आप हमारा मेक कर रहे हैं, आपको जॉब डाइवर्सिटी चाहिए ना, थोड़ा और पैसा डालो मार्केट में और जॉब डाइवर्सिटी भी आ
तो
जाएगी।
उसका
एट
क्या
द
करें।
एंड ऑफ द डे, द ओनली रीजन इंडिया has any say in the world economy is because of the intellectual capital it generates.
ट्रू ट्रू ओनली
Intellectual
हमारे पास कोई
capital gets generated not by how much gold we are saving,
हम्म,
but by cash flow that we are creating, by resources that we are producing, by talent that we are creating.
So our next question is, are policies aimed at reducing gold import effective, or do they drive gold smuggling and black market activities? ठीक है। तो जो पॉलिसी बनाई जाती है गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से, वो गोल्ड इंपोर्ट को किस तरीके से जो गोल्ड इंपोर्ट है उसको इन्फ्लुएंस करती है, और वो एक कारण हो सकता है स्मगलिंग के लिए, ब्लैक मार्केट एक्टिविटी के लिए। ठीक है। तो हमारा देखिए, गवर्नमेंट एक स्कीम लेके आई थी 2015 में, जिसको एसजीबी बोला जाता है, सोवियत गोल्ड बॉन्ड स्कीम। ठीक है। इसके अंदर क्या, गवर्नमेंट एक बॉन्ड्स इशू करती थी। तो जैसे 2000 मार्च 21 2025 के अकॉर्डिंग 67 ट्रांचेस जो गोल्ड है, जो लगभग 146 टन है, जिसकी वैल्यू अभी 72,000 करोड़ रुपए की है, तो उन्होंने वो मोबाइलाइज किया है, जो फिजिकल गोल्ड मोबाइलाइज किया है। ठीक है। अब इसमें से 18 टन उन्होंने रिडीम भी किया है, जिन्होंने एसजीबी में ये किया था। ठीक है। अब जून 15 2025 के अकॉर्डिंग की अगर मैं बात करता हूँ, जो गवर्नमेंट है, ये वाइटल वो डेप्ट इंस्ट्रूमेंट है गवर्नमेंट के लिए। ठीक है। अब एक न्यूज है पीटीआई प्रेस ट्रस्ट ऑफ इंडिया की, कि जो जुलाई 2024 है उसमें, जैसे पहले गोल्ड पे इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी 15% की लगती थी, तो उन्होंने 6% की थी। ठीक है, इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी। तो उसके वजह से जो स्मगलिंग है वो स्टीप डिक्लाइन आया था स्मगलिंग के अंदर। ठीक है। तो ये कहा था जो चेयरमैन है सीबीआईसी के, डॉक्टर संजय कुमार अग्रवाल सेठ। ठीक है। तो उन्होंने ये कहा था। इसके बाद जैसे लेटेस्ट डेटा है कि जो कस्टम है और डीआरआई ऑफिसर्स है, जिन्होंने 847 किलो गोल्ड उन्होंने सीज किया था, 544 करोड़ रुपए का, जो वेरियस एयरपोर्ट पे सीज किया गया था। तो ये बात है अप्रैल और जून पीरियड की, करंट फिजिकल ईयर की। ठीक है। तो जैसे जुलाई के अंदर जो कस्टम ड्यूटी रिलीज हुई थी, जो 15% से लेकर 6% तक, तो जब भी गवर्नमेंट कोई स्कीम लॉन्च करती है, तो गवर्नमेंट ट्रैक करती है, जब भी वो कस्टम ड्यूटी को रिड्यूस करती है, तब तब देखा गया कि जो गोल्ड की जो स्मगलिंग है वो कम हो जाती है।
Question is, are policy aimed at reducing gold import effective, or do they drive gold smuggling and black market activities? So when high duties are in place, increased smuggling, high import duties make smuggled gold more profitable than legally imported gold, which benefit the illegal trade. Slower reduction in gold demand, high duties can lead to a reduction in the overall volume of gold entering the market legally. But this does not necessarily reflect a decrease in overall demand, which can then be met by illegal sources. Loss of government revenue, smuggled gold circumvents custom duties, leading to lost revenue for the government and fueling an underground economy. So, this is the data for World Gold Council Directorate of Revenue Intelligence Report 2024. This is the year shows that in 2018, the import duty in percentage 10% import duty, official import gold in tons 900 tons, estimated smuggling in tons, that is 100 tons. In 2020, there is 12.5% import duty, official import gold 650, and smuggling gold 120 tons. In 2023, 15% import duty, official import gold 610, and smuggling tons 160 tons. In 2000 current year, The import duty is 6%, and official import is near about 580, and smuggling that is about 180 to 200 tons. So smuggling via airport borders, nipple member increased 25% year on year. That show that huge amount of gold is smuggling year on year in 2024 as per the Director Revenue Intelligence Report 2024. Informal gold market now contribute to 20% of total demand. Loss in revenue and rise in illegal trade offset any benefit from reduced official import. Policies don't change demand, only shift supply chains. Black market gold leads to reduced transparency, tax evasion, funding for illegal activity, strain on law enforcement. Here's the graph for gold import duty versus the smuggling in India from 2015 to 2025. So in you can show that the red graph shows the smuggling gold that is in tons, and the blue graph shows the import duty, which is about, as you can see in 2024, the import duty is near about 15%, and the amount of gold smuggled by 150 and above. So this clearly shows that the policies and import duty does not affect the smuggler. Alternative solution: reduce import duty to narrow the price gap, digital gold and ETF to shift savings from physical gold to financial literacy program to promote diversified saving. Conclusion is that policies aimed at reducing gold import are counterproductive. They suppress official trade but fuel illegal channel, reduce tax revenue, and encourage black market activities. A balanced approach reducing duties, incentivizing formal gold saving, and strengthening digital alternative is far more effective. Instead of reducing gold demand, high duty policies fuel illegal trade and weaken regulatory control.
Javed, I completely agree with the figures which you shown. But you have to understand that smuggling is not a result of people's obsession. It is also a result of policy distortion. See, historically, we have seen that whenever the import duties were too high or unstable, smuggling rises as a way to bypass taxes. This is not just restricted to gold, it happens in our normal life also. If we have higher taxation on short term capital gains, we have seen that how Dabba trading apps and betting apps have been so much popular. So people don't smuggle gold because they are obsessed. They smuggle because they always have one or the other way to find loopholes inside the policy. So smuggling exists in many commodities, not just in gold. So if smuggling is proof of economic harm, then even cigarettes are being smuggled. Electronics are also being smuggled.
Gold import duty versus the smuggling in India from 2015 to 25. As you see in this graph, import duty is stable, but the smuggling gold is increased gradually
Import duty is
from
stable, but
six,
the
या 16 से
ठीक है
22 तक
फिर
देखिए अब कंटिन्यू बढ़ रहा है, तो इससे आपका इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी से कोई ही लेना देना नहीं है कि आपका कितना स्मगलिंग हो रहा है। इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी आप नीचे करो या ऊपर करो, आपका स्मगलिंग गोल्ड जो है वो बढ़ते ही जा रहा है एनुअल बाय एनुअल। तो ये क्लियरली बता रहा है कि पॉलिसी डज नॉट अफेक्ट स्मगलर।
So, true to its reputation, instructor team pulled ahead. When the competition started, the sales team was giving good competition, but towards the end, the instructor team pulled ahead. The final scores are 132 to 108. Instructor team won. In all three categories, instructor team was ahead. There were times when the sales team was pulling ahead, but finally, instructor team figured out how to get past the competition that the sales team was giving.
Hmm.
Congratulations, instructor team.
एंटी
Thank you.
गोल्ड टीम जीती है क्या?
हाँ, गोल्ड जीत
एंटी
गया।
गोल्ड गोल्ड वाली जीती है।